let's talk about Rookie of the Year. This is an award that the CDL will give out. We did not have very many candidates this season, something that we talked about on episode 135. The examples that we had to start this season were the entire Vegas Falcons roster, Roxas, Exnid, King Abadi, and Kicks, as well as the two players on the Miami Heretics, Super and Rancor. At that time, we weren't entirely sure of who was actually going to start for Miami because they had the 5-man roster. So Super started on the bench. Rancor ends up starting on the lineup, the starting lineup. And then we also gave another option. I said you could pick one of these 6, or you could pick someone not in the CDL. It didn't need to technically be anyone specific, but it was mostly these 6 versus the field. Mr. Binkowski over here chose the field, said someone not in the CDL right now. Although I did go back and I watched it.
Yep.
You gave a special shout out to King Abadi, and it didn't work out because he had the worst KD in the entire CDL when he did play, and he got replaced during the season. I picked Rancor, but I specially shouted out Rex because I figured that he might get a shot. I would say that was also not a great pick, even though he is still on a roster. He is going to champs, but certainly has not worked out in Carolina or his favor so far. My top 5 for this, for Rookie of the Year. So I think it's a really tough award because I would say most of these players, or I guess none of these players were on a championship team, right? Because there were only 4 championships at the majors, and FaZe and LAT won all of them. No rookies on either of those teams. And then in a few of these, cases, their teams were just really, really bad as well. And it's really hard to kind of see how valuable or how good they are when the rest of the team is so bad. But I went number 5, Lunars, who came into LAG after, I believe, Major 1. He finished the season on LAG. We talked about it. One of the worst CDL teams of all time. His rookie season just immediately went down the drain. It felt like there was a lot of hype for him, and it just did not pan out in the way that we thought it would, or anyone thought it would, I'm sure. But I'll give him a shout out at 5. 4, I went with Exnid because he was on Vegas the entire season. I think he performed pretty well, all things considered, with how bad that team was. Lunars, I think, had about as many wins as Exnid did, which, so they're kind of tied in that respect. And then I give the edge to Exnid because he'd been on the team a little bit longer, and I think his stats might have been a little bit better, but I don't think it was like a huge difference either way. 3, I think, could be controversial because he has not played very much. But 3, I went with Mercules because so Exnid and Lunars were on teams way longer than him, and he had way more success in basically 5 weeks than anybody or than Exnid and Lunars did in 5 months, basically. So Mercules goes and gets, I believe, top 3 at Major 3 with Toronto, gets top 4 at Major 4 with Optic. He wins 2 qualifying matches, so he almost matches Exnid's entire season total in 3 weeks in the qualifiers. So I went with Mercules at 3. I could not move him any higher than that, though, because he was only around for so little time. And then my top 2, the Miami Heretics boys, I went with Rancor for number 1 and Super for number 2. I've told you, and I've explained this on the podcast, why I would probably do this in general. Super came in before the Major 3 qualifiers, if I'm not mistaken. He substituted for 1 match for medals, I believe, during the Major 2 qualifiers, and then he came in full-time before Major 3. And he's been the best rookie this season, like over a long stretch of time. Mercules is probably like the highest ceiling at this moment, but it's also been 4 to 5 weeks. Super's been doing this for a few months now, and he deserves a lot of credit. He's been incredible. Had he played the whole season or close to it, I would have definitely given him Rookie of the Year. But Rincourt has been there since day one of this season. He has a top three finish, an extra top three finish at a major that Super does not, which is probably the big determining factor, because after that, it did not seem to work out for Miami in the qualifiers. So I'll go with Rincourt and Super for 1 and 2. How does your top five or your finalists match up with mine?
Basically bar for bar. I put Rex slash Lunars at 5 because I really just was like, you wanted a top 5, and I was like, I'll just do that. I'd Exnid at 4. I had Mercules at 3, and I thought that was kind of high. I was gonna like switch Exnid and Mercules just because Exnid has played the whole season, but I think end of the day, the impact Mercules had, even in a small sample size with both Optic and Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
I gave him the edge there. And then, like you, I put Super at 2 and Rancor at 1. I think I said it in a couple of the past episodes. If Miami had won either of these events at Major 3, Major 4, and Super was the MVP of the event, I think that would have been the only way I could vote Super over Rancor,
Yeah.
just given the fact that Rancor played the whole season and Super didn't. But if Super ends up getting Rookie of the Year and people value the short term impact he had, I wouldn't be upset with it. I think, end of the day, like the Miami boys, like I think if we're of the opinion right now that it's either one of them, I think they'd probably be happy for one another if one of them gets it. And I think that's, the most likely outcome. I think Rancor will get it in the end just because, like you said, he's got that extra top 3 placing, and he has he's been in the lineup for the full season. And I think that was, this is a couple years now, especially last year, the whole debate at the end of the year was like Gwyn versus Abuza, and neither of them had the championships, but they were at least a part of the CDL for the whole season. And Abuza had that stretch at the beginning of the year when they were trying to make him use an SMG, and he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like a main AR. And then they eventually made roster changes to get him on the main AR, and that's when he started to shine. Um, so it's a little different in that sense this year, where it's really not like there aren't two contenders who don't have championships but played the whole season. It's really two players on the same team, and one played the whole season and one came in and drastically changed the season, but at the end of the day they didn't get a championship. So if people want to vote Super number 1, I wouldn't be against it, but in my mind I think Rancor's got to get it.
That's my thing right now is I don't know if people will actually agree with us, because there's been so much talk about Super and like his impact on this team, very obviously and rightfully so. And that makes me think that Super might be able to climb up the rankings and get enough votes. I don't know if it'll be in a unanimous or like an overwhelming decision in favor of Super, but I do think that it's probably going to be a lot closer than I would have it, because like it wasn't that big or that hard of a decision for me to put Rincourt over Super in this, just because of the times that they played. Like one played a little more than half the season, because if you're including both of the minors, versus Super, who played a little less than half the season, like that makes a big difference for me. I also think Mercules won't be nearly as high. Like I think
Yeah.
fan voting, if that is like fan voting, I think is in Rookie of the Year. If not, then it might just be the coaches and media. But um, if fan voting is in, Mercules will be a lot higher than probably he normally would be. But I think Exnid might finish third in the voting in general, just because he's been there. I think people felt very good for him that they actually won a match. They won a few matches. It seemed to be like almost a rallying cry for Exnid in particular. So I wonder if that'll affect anything in terms of voting for Rookie of the Year.